Welcome back to another race breakdown. Today we're going to look at Sha'Carri Richardson's dominant win in the 200 at the Nairobi Continental Tour. You've seen this race by now. Let's watch it again and talk about what it means for the rest of Richardson's season. She's lined up fourth from left in lane number 5 for this race. She had run one other 200 this year at another Continental Tour meet in Botswana, where she came in second. This time, it would be a completely different story already. Look how quick she is, making up the stagger on the runner to her outside. And as she comes off the curve, this is what separated this 200 from a lot of other Richardson 200s. Look how smooth and seamless the transition is from the curve into the straightaway, carrying all that momentum down this final stretch. And then, of course, the celebration starts very early for Richardson. Huge margin of victory. And then the celebration that comes afterwards. She was very fired up, of course. Let's go back and look, though, at that transition off the curve into the straightaway. And you can contrast it if you saw the race a couple weeks ago in Botswana, where she was tightening up down the straight. This time she wasn't. And all that momentum carries her to the finish line. A lot of talk about how fast she could have ran if she didn't celebrate. People saying, how early did she celebrate? Well, good frame of reference. This line right here, that should be the mile start line. That's about 9 meters back. And then the other one should be the 2 mile start line here. So that's 18 meters back. So she's starting, I don't know, a good 25 or so meters ahead. Might have slowed down even before then. In any event, she definitely could have gone at the very least sub 22 if she didn't celebrate earlier. Much faster than that. I'm sure this race was at altitude. You can factor that in. But it would have been a PR for sure. Let's look. We're going to look at the rankings in a second, but let's look at her performances this year. Of course, the 10.57, which was wind aided, and then I thought an even more impressive performance in Doha with the 10.76 in the win over Sha'Carri Jackson. Here it is, the 22.07 with a plus 1.7 win. Great conditions, but look at that improvement compared to Botswana. All time, remember her PR in this event, 22 flat, going back to 2020. So she's definitely in PR shape in the 200. We know she's in PR shape in the 100 because she's run a 10.57, even though it is wind aided this year. We know she can go under 10.72 this year. Even though this was a 200-meter race, it got me thinking about the 100, updated some 100-meter rankings, which I'm sure people will disagree with here, but Sha'Carri Richardson, I have her all the way up in number 2, and you could even argue for her to be number 1 just because we haven't seen Shelley and Fraser-Price run yet. Now, if Fraser-Price runs, she's been battling an injury. She pulled out of this Nairobi meet where she was supposed to run the 100. If she runs a 10.7 or runs a 10.6 like she's capable of, obviously she'd hold on to that spot. But also if she runs, she could run potentially slower than Richardson's been running, and then you could make an argument that right now, not projecting in the future, but right now, Richardson's the one who deserves that number 1 spot. Now, for the time being, we'll keep Fraser-Price number 1, while Richardson 2. Sha'Carri Jackson, I had 3rd. She was 2nd to Richardson in Doha. Again, you want to weigh past performances, but you also want to react to what's happening this season. And this season, Richardson has been on fire. Toulouse ran in the 10.7s this year. Alfred coming off of a low 10.8. I expect to see her break the collegiate record, go under 10.75 this year. Thompson Hurrah, she ran a 200 earlier this year. Nothing that would suggest she's in the top 5 right now, but it's Elaine Thompson Hurrah. She comes on late. I'd expect her to move into this top 5 pretty quickly. But right now, you can make a solid argument that Sha'Carri Richardson should be 2 and no lower than 2nd based on what's happened this year. Doesn't mean it's going to continue throughout the rest of the season. That's what makes following the season so much fun, all the ups and downs from all these athletes and monitoring the head-to-head battles. Hopefully we get to see, this top 5, this top 10 race against each other a lot this season. But just a great performance for Richardson. Watch that final 100 one more time. Great performance from her, looking really solid in the 200, which is her 2nd best event. And that's the other thing you could talk about too. Where does this put Richardson in the 200-meter pecking order? Now, the 200-meter team, much more difficult to make for the U.S. than the 100-meter team because you have Abby Steiner, you have Gabby Thomas, right? You have a deep bench there in the women's 200, and it will be tough for Richardson to make that team. But if she's running like this come U.S. championships in July, she's going to be on that team. there's no doubt about it in the 1 and the 2. So just something to keep an eye on as we move forward in the season. Sha'Carri Richardson, big win in the Nairobi Continental Tour 200. That's it for this edition of the Race Breakdown. Subscribe to the FloTrack YouTube page for more. We'll talk to you next time.